Okay, 6th graders, today we are going to summarize all of Module 9 where we studied percentages. We've been doing this for a while, but we're going to get right to it. This is Module 9 with percentages. The first thing in this module that we had to learn how to do is how to find the percent of a number. And we do this by using proportional reasoning, multiplying by fractions, and then also by multiplying by decimals. Okay, the first thing that I want to remind you guys about is that we have drawn a number line on the board. We've done it as a class activity on the yellow piece of paper in your journal, and we also have talked about this extensively, that there are certain celebrity, that's what we're calling them in class, benchmarks of percents, decimals, and fractions that you need to memorize to make a lot of this easier. And so what I have done right here is I have shown you our celebrity number line, and what we're going to do is we're going to use these celebrity benchmarks to find an equivalent percent for each fraction. Now, if you've memorized this, you can see that 9/10 is right here at 90%. But if you did not remember that that was a celebrity, what we need to do to find an equivalent percent is to remember that percent means per 100. So that means we're going to be dividing everything by 100. So 100 is always going to be our denominator. So what we need to decide is, what do I do to 10 to make it become 100? We're going to multiply that times 10. So we have to do the exact same thing to the top. That makes it 90 over 100, which means 90%. That's exactly what this 9/10 says it's equivalent to. Now let's do 2/5. If we look here, we know that 2/5 is one of our celebrities, and it's right here at 40%. But again, if you did not have that memorized, you can do the exact same thing that we've done here to find an equivalent fraction with 100 as our denominator. And then you have to decide, what do I do to 5 to make it become 100? I multiply it times 20. So I do the exact same thing to the top. 2 times 20 is 40. So 2/5 is equal to 40%. So now that we have figured out that part of it using our benchmarks to find equivalent fractions, to find percentages, we need to look at how can we do the conversions between percents, fractions, and decimals. We have to be able to show their equivalencies like we showed on the number line, but we have to know how to convert them. And so we've learned in class how to do that. The first thing that we have to look at is how you can write equivalent percents, fractions, and decimals. And you guys know that equivalent means equal. And these are the two different ways that you can do. Actually, there's three. There's three different ways to do it. Any decimal or percent can be written as a fraction with 100 as its denominator. Whenever we're looking at percentages, 100 is what we're always wanting as our denominator, so that's what we're always going to put on bottom. So if we're given the decimal number of 0.25 or the percentage of 25%, we would make that a fraction by putting 100 on bottom as our denominator and putting our 25 on top. The next thing that you can do is any fraction can be written as a decimal by using top dog in the house. Now, 4/5 is also one of our celebrities that you guys should already know. But in case you didn't know that, we're going to use top dog in the house. And if you guys remember, top dog in the house is where 4 goes on the inside, 5 goes on the outside, and as you do long division, you know that 5 goes into 4.00 0.8 times. So the answer to that as a decimal is 0.80. So that takes care of how any decimal can be changed or a percent can be changed and how any fraction can be changed. This next one says, how can a decimal be written as a percentage? By multiplying by 100 and inserting the percent symbol. Well, here's the deal. I want you guys to get used to using the Dr. Pepper trick. All you kiddos know that Dr. Pepper is my drink of choice. And so Dr. Pepper stands for decimal and percent. The Dr. Pepper trick is this. If you start off with a decimal, you move your decimal place 2 places to the right to change it to be a percent. And if you start off with a number that's a percentage and you want to change it to a decimal, you move them 2 decimal places to the left. So let's use the Dr. Pepper trick on this. If I have 0.37 and I want to change that to be a percent, I would move my decimal 2 places to the right because I started off with a decimal and I'm wanting to make it a percent. So that would equal 37%. Now this one is a little bit different because I have a whole number there. If I have 1.42 and I want to put that decimal as a percentage, I'm still moving my decimal 2 places to the right. So it would actually be 142%. Okay, so now let's look at these 2 different problems and let's put what we've just talked about into practice, okay? This says it wants us to write these percents as a fraction and a decimal. So we've got 2 things that we have to do with them. The first thing that we need to remember is to make them a fraction, we have to put them over 100. If I have 48%, to change that to be a fraction, I just put 48 over 100. That's as a fraction. Now, how would I change 48 hundredths to a decimal or 48%? Remember, we're going to use the Dr. Pepper trick. I start off with a percentage. To make it be a decimal, I move my decimal 2 places to the left. So if I start off with this, I'm moving it 2 places to the left. And so my decimal number would be 0.48. The same thing is going to happen with 75%. To change it to a fraction, I put 100 on bottom, 75 on top. Now I'm starting off with a percentage, so I'm going to move my decimal 2 places to the left there. And so my decimal value is 0.75. This next step is where I think some of you guys are having a hard time, and so I want to make sure that we go through this. If you're given these fractions and it wants you to write them as a decimal and as a percent, you guys are going to have to remember you're going to have to look for equivalencies. And the only way we can look for equivalencies is to make these fractions equal to 100 on bottom. Now, if we have 9 over 25 and I'm wanting to find this missing link over 100, what am I doing to 25 to make it become 100? I'm multiplying it by 4. So I have to do the same thing to the top. That gives me 36 over 100. So that is equal to 36%. That takes care of my percent. Now to change it to a decimal, again, use the Dr. Pepper trick. I start off with a percent. I'm making it a decimal, so I move it 2 places to the left. So my decimal value would be 0.36. This one is a little bit different because does 8 go into 100 evenly? No, it doesn't. So we actually cannot use this. We're going to use top dog in the house. So what we're going to do to make this be a decimal value is put 7 on the inside, 8 on the outside, and we're going to do our division. 8 goes into 70 8 times. That gives us leftovers of 6. Bring down our 0. 8 goes into 67 times. That is 56. We have 4 left over. I'm going to add 1 more 0. And 8 goes into 40 5 times. So my equivalent decimal value for 7/8 is 0.875. Now let's use the Dr. Pepper trick to change this decimal to be a percentage. If I start with a decimal, I move it 2 places to the right to get my percentage. So that's going to equal 87.5%. Okay, guys, we're going to stop this video right here because that concludes Lesson 9.2, and we'll do a brand new video on Lesson 9.3 on solving percent problems.